The stars glittered like scattered diamonds across the black canvas of space. The massive Zorvian flagship moved silently through the void, its sleek, jagged frame cutting a path toward a star system that humans had only begun to explore. On the bridge of the ship, alien officers moved with precision, their limbs and antennae twitching with purpose. At the center of it all sat Zilara, the Zorvian queen. Her skin shimmered in shades of deep violet and silver, and her eyes, large and luminous, held the weight of countless conquests. She was feared across galaxies, her name spoken with trembling reverence and terror in equal measure. Yet, today, curiosity replaced fear in her gaze. Reports had reached her of a human named Elias Rourke, a captain of a small but surprisingly capable crew. Against the odds, this one human had managed to turn back a Zorvian fleet during a skirmish near the Rhinoth Nebula. At first, Zilara dismissed it as exaggeration or propaganda. But as the reports continued, describing his clever tactics, unyielding courage, and uncanny ability to inspire loyalty, she found herself intrigued. How could a single human, fragile, primitive by Zorvian standards, challenge the might of her empire? She leaned forward, her fingers brushing the smooth surface of the command console. "Bring me his ship," she commanded. Her voice was a melodic hum that carried authority and menace. "I want to see this human for myself." The bridge erupted in quiet activity. Screens flickered to life, mapping the trajectory of a small human vessel weaving between asteroids in a nearby system. Zilara's eyes narrowed as she observed its movement. Unlike Zorvian ships, built for raw power and intimidation, this human vessel was small, almost fragile. Yet it moved with agility, dodging detection drones and navigating debris fields with precision. It was as if the ship itself knew where to go, guided by the will of its captain. Zilara's mind raced with possibilities. Could it be luck? A fluke? Or was humanity this tiny, unremarkable species capable of something more? The thought was both dangerous and exciting. She had conquered countless worlds and species, but never one like this. There was something unpredictable about humans, something that her calculations could not fully comprehend. Meanwhile, on the human ship, Captain Elias Rourke adjusted his control panel, his brow furrowed in concentration. The Rhinoth Nebula loomed ahead, a swirling mass of gas and light that made sensors unreliable. His crew moved efficiently around him, each member trusting his commands without question. They had faced impossible odds before, but each time, they had found a way. Elias knew that luck alone would not see them through this mission. They needed strategy, skill, and a bit of courage, the kind that humans seem to carry in their very bones. As they entered the edge of the nebula, sensors picked up a larger presence. The readings were massive, far beyond any human vessel's capabilities. "Captain, we have something big ahead," said Lieutenant Mara. Elias's eyes followed the readings. "Bring it on," he said simply. His tone was calm, but beneath it was the heartbeat of a man who had faced death countless times and survived. "Keep us steady, and remember, use your head, not just your weapons. Outthinking them is our best chance." The alien ship appeared as a shadow in the swirling nebula, its jagged edges reflecting faint light. It was magnificent and terrifying, a true testament to Zorvian engineering. Elias's heart did not race in fear, but in determination. He had seen ships like this in simulations, in intelligence reports, and he had learned their weaknesses. Size and firepower meant little if you knew how to exploit the smaller gaps, the moments where even the strongest could be outmaneuvered. Kailara observed from her flagship as the human ship continued its daring navigation through the nebula. Every maneuver Elias made, every evasive action, she watched with fascination. There was a rhythm to his movements, a confidence in his decisions that defied the raw logic of her sensors. The humans were unpredictable, chaotic in ways that machines could not easily anticipate, and yet, There was brilliance in their chaos. She leaned back, her tentacles brushing the surface of the bridge in thought. Interesting, she murmured. She had faced brilliant generals, cunning diplomats, and fearsome warriors. But none had sparked this combination of frustration and admiration. A single human, and already she felt the thrill of something new, something that could challenge the order of the galaxy she had built. The human ship suddenly veered sharply, disappearing behind a massive cluster of asteroids. Sensors on the Zorvian flagship struggled to keep track. "Impossible," muttered a nearby officer. "It should have been caught in the nebula's magnetic field. There is no way." Zylara raised a hand, silencing him. "Do not underestimate them," she said. "Observe, learn, and prepare." Back on the human vessel, Elias and his crew used the nebula to their advantage, weaving through the gas clouds and asteroid fields with precision. "They're big, but slow," he said. "We stay out of their path, and we make them chase, keep them off balance. That's how we survive." Hours passed, or perhaps minutes, it was hard to tell in the shifting colors of the nebula. Every action, every decision, tested their skills. Yet, through clever maneuvers and a deep understanding of their ship, Elias and his crew managed to evade detection. They were small, but they were smart, quick, and determined. Finally, as the nebula thinned, Elias looked ahead at the open space beyond. The Zorvian flagship loomed, its enormity undeniable. But so was the resolve of the human crew. "We're not done yet," he said. His words were quiet, but filled with conviction. "We show them what humans can do." Zylara, observing from her bridge, felt a flicker of something she had never felt before, curiosity mingled with respect. This human was more than a target, more than a challenge. He was a force that could not be ignored. And as she watched, she realized that her next move would not be simple. This was no ordinary conquest. She allowed herself a small smile, the kind that promised both challenge and admiration. Perhaps, for the first time in her long life, Zylara would meet an adversary who could truly make her think, and maybe even change the course of the galaxy. The human ship glided silently through the asteroid field, its small engines leaving faint trails of blue light against the darkness of space. Captain Elias Rourke sat in his seat, fingers resting lightly on the control console, eyes scanning every instrument. The crew around him worked in perfect rhythm, each member moving with quiet efficiency, responding to his commands without hesitation. Though the Zorvian flagship loomed somewhere beyond the nebula, Elias knew that fear would accomplish nothing. What mattered was strategy, quick thinking, and the kind of patience only humans seem to understand. Lieutenant Mara leaned over a console. "Sensors are still picking them up, Captain. Their fleet is enormous. They could crush us in minutes if they choose." Elias nodded calmly. "Size doesn't win battles. Strategy does. Keep your focus. And remember, we don't run blindly. We make them chase us." The crew worked to plot a course through the denser parts of the asteroid belt. Massive rocks, some larger than small cities, drifted lazily, their paths unpredictable. To the Zorvians, it was a natural hazard meant to slow intruders. To Elias, it was an opportunity. He guided the ship with careful precision, weaving through the obstacles, letting the massive alien vessel follow, frustrated by every evasive move. The human's small size, flexibility, and ability to improvise in real time gave them an advantage that raw power could not overcome. Zylara observed from her command chair on the flagship. Her many eyes narrowed as she watched the humans navigate the asteroid field with a grace that defied her expectations. "They are clever," she said, almost to herself. "Too clever to be ordinary. Perhaps exceptional." Her tentacles moved in subtle gestures across her console, issuing orders to the officers, monitoring the chase. "Adjust sensors," she commanded. Predict their path. We cannot allow them to escape or outsmart us. The Zorvian fleet shifted, attempting to anticipate the human maneuvers. But every time they thought they had trapped Elias, he slipped away, exploiting a gap, using the nebula's distortions, or taking advantage of the unpredictable movements of the asteroids. To Zylara, it was both frustrating and thrilling. She had fought against countless species, but none had shown this combination of instinct, ingenuity, and sheer boldness. Meanwhile, on the human ship, a faint alarm sounded. "Captain, something's approaching from the rear," said Ensign Lila, her fingers flying over the control panel. A small scouting drone detached from the Zorvian flagship, scanning for weaknesses. Elias leaned forward, eyes focused. "They want to see what we can do up close. Let's give them a demonstration." He maneuvered the ship sharply, dodging the drone's scans. Then used the gravitational pull of a nearby asteroid to swing around, coming unexpectedly close to the alien machine. The drone, designed for brute force intimidation, faltered. Elias's crew cheered quietly, but the captain remained calm. "Good," he said. "Keep going. Keep them guessing. Good offer. Good offer. Good offer." Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the soft hum of engines and occasional chatter between crew members. Each maneuver, each decision, tested their patience, skill, and unity. The humans were small, fragile, and far outnumbered, yet they moved with a confidence that unsettled the Zorvian officers. For the first time, Zylara wondered if her assumptions about this species were entirely wrong. Finally, the human ship emerged from the denser section of the asteroid field and entered a small, empty space surrounded by larger asteroids. It was a natural arena, one where the humans could see and predict the movement of anything approaching. Elias stopped the ship, eyes scanning the vast emptiness. "This is it," he said. "They'll have to make a choice, now risk coming in here, or wait and lose time. Either way, we control the moment." Zylara's flagship appeared from the nebula, massive and imposing. Her eyes studied the human closely, intrigued by the calm confidence radiating from him. "Fascinating," she murmured. "He does not fear us, he does not flee. He stands his ground, even knowing the odds." She issued new orders to her officers. "Prepare a test. Let him show his skills. I want to understand what makes humans so unpredictable." On the human ship, Elias's crew stiffened as the Zorvian fleet altered its course. They could feel the alien power radiating even from a distance, a reminder of the stakes. Yet, Elias's expression remained steady. "We don't wait for them to act," he said. "We create opportunities. That is how humans survive and thrive." He guided the ship deeper into the asteroid arena, using the rocks as cover, moving in ways that made sense only to those who understood human thinking. The Zorvian ships followed, constrained by their size and the need for coordination. Elias noticed patterns in their movements, predicting their reactions and adjusting instantly. Every maneuver was small but deliberate, designed to confuse, frustrate, and test the aliens. Zylara watched with growing admiration. Her scouts reported the humans' choices, their tactics, and their adaptability. "They are not merely surviving," she said. "They are shaping the battlefield. They are learning faster than we anticipated." Elias's ship suddenly darted between two massive asteroids, disappearing from the line of sight of the Zorvian flagship. The humans held their breath as the aliens adjusted their sensors. Then, in a bold move, Elias swung the ship around, appearing behind the lead Zorvian vessel. "Hold steady," he whispered. "This is our moment." The crew followed his commands flawlessly, using the asteroid's gravitational pull. They slingshot the ship in a perfect arc, narrowly avoiding collision. and positioned themselves in a spot that gave them maximum visibility while minimizing exposure. The Zorvians, though technologically superior, struggled to adapt to this small, clever adversary. Zylara leaned forward, tentacles brushing lightly across the console. "Remarkable," she whispered. "This human. He is not like the others. He does not flee. He calculates. He adapts. He dares. Well, ID. In 17 dog. For the humans, the maneuver was exhilarating. For the aliens, it was confusing. The power imbalance that should have been obvious seemed irrelevant in the face of ingenuity and courage. Elias's crew exchanged glances, understanding without words that their captain had once again turned the impossible into the possible. The hours of tension passed, and finally, Zylara made her decision. She would not destroy this human, not yet. There was too much to learn, too much potential. Instead, she would observe him directly, closer than ever before. Perhaps, she thought, this one human could teach her something about courage, resourcefulness, and resilience. Elias did not know that he had already captured the fascination of the galaxy's most feared queen. He only knew that his crew was alive, that they had survived against impossible odds, and that the battle was far from over. But for the first time, he felt a spark of something larger than mere survival, the sense that humanity, even small and fragile, could stand tall in the face of a universe that doubted them. And somewhere far above, in the shadows of her massive flagship, Zylara began to see humans not as insignificant creatures to be dismissed, but as something extraordinary, something worth watching. The human ship drifted in the quiet space beyond the asteroid field, engines humming softly. Captain Elias Rourke leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning the empty void ahead. The crew was tense but alert, each member silently acknowledging that the calm was temporary. They had survived one of the most dangerous maneuvers of their lives, but now a new challenge awaited, a confrontation with the alien queen herself. Across the void, the Zorvian flagship loomed larger than ever. Its blackened hull reflected the faint light of distant stars, and its many lights blinked with precise, mechanical order. On the bridge, Queen Zylara's eyes glimmered with intensity. She had watched Elias maneuver his ship with skill, patience, and daring courage. Every calculation she made, every strategy she deployed, had been met with clever improvisation. And now, curiosity had grown into fascination. This human was unlike any being she had encountered. She tapped a few controls, and a smaller shuttle detached from her flagship. Its purpose was clear. She would see this human herself, face to face. For the first time in her life, Zylara felt the thrill of meeting someone she did not yet fully understand. Not as an enemy to crush, but as a puzzle to solve. A force to study. On the human ship, sensors picked up the incoming shuttle. "Captain, a small vessel is approaching," said Lieutenant Mara. Her eyes widened. "It doesn't match any known Zorvian fighter class." Elias straightened, a calm smile crossing his face. "Then it's time we meet the Queen." He gestured to the crew. "Prepare for docking protocols. But stay alert. This is unfamiliar territory." The humans moved with quiet precision, readying their ship for the arrival of the alien envoy. The shuttle glided smoothly toward them, its surface reflecting light in sharp, almost metallic waves. When it docked, the airlock hissed, and the humans readied themselves. The door slid open, revealing a figure taller and more imposing than any human had ever seen. Zylara stepped into their ship, her presence commanding yet measured. Every movement exuded confidence and grace. Her eyes, large and glowing, scanned the human crew, finally resting on Elias. He met her gaze steadily, neither intimidated nor deferential. "Captain Elias Rourke," she said, her voice low and musical, yet carrying undeniable authority. "I am Queen Zylara of the Zorvian Empire. I have watched your maneuvers. Your species intrigues me. Elias inclined his head slightly. Captain's duty is to survive, ma'am. And sometimes, survive with style. His tone was light, but there was a firmness beneath it. A hint that he understood the stakes. Xylara's many limbs shifted subtly as she studied him. Style is irrelevant. What matters is ability, intelligence, courage. I see that you have all three, in abundance. She paused. I wish to test this further, not as punishment, but to understand. Are you willing? Elias's eyes narrowed in thought. Testing us? You've already tried that from a distance. I'd say we passed the first round. His lips twitched into a faint smile. But if it helps you learn, then yes. We are ready. The Queen nodded, a gesture both formal and approving. Good. I will design a series of challenges to observe your adaptability, your creativity, and your will. Your ship, your crew, and your mind will all be tested. Should you succeed, it will be enlightening. For hours, Xylara guided the humans through simulations of impossible scenarios. They navigated fields of artificial asteroids, energy barriers, and sudden gravitational shifts. Every time the humans found a solution, it was unexpected, ingenious, and uniquely human. They relied on instinct, cooperation, and clever improvisation skills that no Zorvian machine or calculation could fully predict. Elias led calmly, his mind thinking several steps ahead. Keep your positions, he instructed. But remember, the obvious path is rarely the best. Watch for opportunities, not just obstacles. Each crew member understood, anticipating his intentions without explicit commands. Xylara's eyes followed every move. She had faced great generals, brilliant strategists, and fearless warriors. But none had shown this combination of skill, courage, and moral composure. There was something remarkable about humans, their ability to adapt, to inspire loyalty, to confront danger without despair. And in Elias, she saw the epitome of those qualities. At one point, the simulation presented a seemingly impossible challenge. A corridor collapsing under artificial gravity, with only a few seconds to navigate. The human ship's size made it vulnerable, yet Elias calculated the trajectory, coordinating his crew's responses with precise timing. The ship darted through the corridor, dodging obstacles, bending physics in ways that seemed impossible. The Queen's scanners lit up with anomalies, recording every move. That was impressive, Xylara said, her voice tinged with admiration. I did not expect such creativity from your species. Elias shrugged lightly. We don't have your technology, but we have our minds. We make do. Hours passed, and the humans faced challenge after challenge. Each time, they survived, adapted, and overcame in ways that were elegant, clever, and often surprising. Xylara, who had once believed humans to be insignificant, felt her perspective shift. There was something undeniable about their courage, their ingenuity, and the way they inspired one another to rise above limits. Finally, after the last simulation, the humans stood exhausted but triumphant. Elias looked at the Queen with calm determination. I hope that was enough for you. Xylara moved closer, her eyes focused on him. Enough? No. It was far more than enough. It was enlightening. She paused, the air around her vibrating subtly with her presence. I have never encountered a species that displays such resilience, ingenuity, and honor in equal measure. You are extraordinary. End quote. Elias felt no arrogance in her words, only recognition. We are just humans, ma'am. We do what we must. That is how we survive. That is how we grow. The Queen regarded him in silence, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a gesture occurred that shocked even the humans. Zilara lowered herself to one knee before Elias, not in submission to authority, but in acknowledgement of his courage and humanity. Her gesture was deliberate, respectful, and filled with a gravity that transcended words. The humans were silent, unsure how to respond. It was unlike anything they had experienced in the galaxy, an act of reverence from a being who could have destroyed them at any moment. Elias looked at her calmly. "Thank you," he said simply. "But we're not done yet. There is always more to learn, more to survive, more to achieve." Zilara straightened slowly, her eyes meeting his. "Indeed, and I wish to see what else your species can accomplish. You have earned my attention, Captain Elias Rourke, not just as a warrior, but as an example of humanity's potential." The human crew exchanged glances, understanding that this was more than a personal victory. Their species, often dismissed as weak or insignificant, had earned respect from one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Elias's courage, intelligence, and moral strength had shifted the perspective of an entire empire. As Zilara prepared to return to her flagship, she looked back once more. "We will meet again," she said, her tone a mixture of promise and challenge. "Next time, I will learn even more from you. And perhaps even more from your species as a whole." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "We'll be ready," he said. "Humans always are." The Queen departed, leaving the human crew in quiet awe. They had faced the impossible, survived, and gained the recognition of a being who had once considered them unworthy. The bond between humans and their potential allies, or perhaps their future rivals, had shifted, and a new chapter in the story of humanity in the galaxy had begun. For Elias, the moment was not one of pride, but of purpose. Humanity had proven its worth, not through sheer force, but through ingenuity, courage, and the will to persevere. And as the stars stretched endlessly ahead, he knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would change the galaxy forever. The calm, after the encounter with Xylara, did not last long. As the human ship sailed through the star-strewn void, sensors suddenly picked up a massive fleet approaching from the far side of the system. Elias Rourke leaned over the console, scanning the readings with careful attention. "New ships," he muttered. "Not Zorvian. At least not from her fleet. They're different, hostile." Lieutenant Mara's fingers moved swiftly across the controls. "Captain, they're closing fast. Multiple frigates, heavily armed. If they engage, we'll be outnumbered 10-1. Elias nodded, his face calm but determined. "Then we use what we have. Keep your wits. We fight smart, not just hard." The human crew tightened their grips on controls, each one aware that this was no simulation, no test, this was real danger. As the enemy fleet approached, the humans analyzed every detail. The ships were massive and heavily armored, their weapons systems far more advanced than anything humanity had in its fleet. But Elias noticed patterns, subtle weaknesses in formation, predictable firing sequences, and a lack of coordination among the enemy ships. Humanity had survived worse odds before, relying on ingenuity and the ability to adapt faster than their opponents. "Deploy drones," Elias ordered. "Not for attack, for distraction. Keep them guessing." The small drones darted among the enemy fleet, confusing sensors and triggering false alarms. While the alien captains recalculated, the human ship moved swiftly, using the debris of a nearby asteroid belt as cover. Zilara, observing from her flagship, watched with interest. "They face overwhelming numbers," she said softly. "Yet they do not panic. They calculate. They improvise. They inspire one another. This is the way of humans." Her tentacles moved lightly over the console, marking data for later study. She had seen bravery before, but not this combination of courage, intelligence, and cohesion under pressure. The human ship suddenly split its path into a series of daring maneuvers, weaving between asteroids while luring the enemy fleet into a narrow corridor. The alien captains, confident in their firepower, followed, unaware of the trap forming around them. Elias's crew held their breaths, trusting his instincts completely. "Hold your positions," Elias instructed. "We're going to turn their strength against them." The human ship twisted, using the gravitational pull of a nearby planet to accelerate sharply. The enemy ships, caught off guard, collided with debris and each other in confusion. Weapons fired blindly, energy beams striking nothing but the void. Lieutenant Mara let out a low whistle. "They're falling apart, Captain." "It's working." Elias nodded. "Keep focused. One mistake, one wrong calculation, and it's over. But if we stay sharp, we can survive this and turn the tide." The humans then executed their most daring plan. Using small but powerful energy pulses, they created temporary magnetic fields that interfered with the enemy's navigation systems. The alien fleet, massive and precise, became unpredictable, unable to coordinate their attacks effectively. Elias guided the ship through the chaos, taking advantage of every opening. His crew followed his lead perfectly, adapting to every change, every surprise. Hours of relentless strategy and improvisation passed. The enemy fleet, unable to handle the humans' clever tactics, began to retreat in disarray. Ships collided, weapons overheated, and the humans pressed forward, exploiting every flaw. Through sheer intellect and teamwork, they turned the overwhelming odds into an advantage. Xylera's eyes gleamed with admiration. "They are extraordinary," she said. "I have underestimated them." One human, and their species' strength, shows clearly. Not in numbers, but in mind and spirit. Her respect for Elias and humanity as a whole grew with every moment. She realized that humans were not a species to be crushed or ignored. They were capable of reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy. After the battle, Elias guided the ship to a safe location, hidden among the asteroids. His crew was exhausted, but alive. "We did it," said Mara, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "Against those numbers, we actually did it." Elias looked at his crew, pride in his calm eyes. "We didn't win because we're strong," he said. "We won because we think, we adapt, and we trust each other. That's what makes humans dangerous, not our size or firepower, but our mind and our heart." The human ship remained hidden while Xylera's observation drones assessed the aftermath of the battle. The enemy fleet had been severely damaged, some ships destroyed, others retreating in confusion. Humanity had survived against a force far larger and stronger, and had done so without losing cohesion or morale. Xylera considered what she had witnessed. She had come to test humans, to observe a single captain, but the events of the battle showed her something deeper. Elias was not just exceptional, he was an example of the best qualities of his species. Courage, intelligence, creativity, and the ability to inspire others. His leadership had turned chaos into strategy, weakness into advantage. Humanity had proven itself on a galactic stage. When she returned to the flagship, Xylera spoke to her officers. "Remember what you saw today," she said. "This human and his species are not to be underestimated. They survive where others fail. They fight, not just with weapons, but with ingenuity. We must respect them, and perhaps learn from them." Back on the human ship, Elias and his crew celebrated quietly. There was no grand cheer, no boastful words. They understood that this victory was just a step, a single proof that humans, small and often overlooked, could face impossible odds and succeed. Humanity's journey in the galaxy was only beginning, and every challenge they overcame would strengthen their place among the stars. Elias stared out into space, thinking of the future. He knew Zylara would watch, learn, and perhaps challenge them again. But he also knew that humans, with their minds and hearts combined, could survive anything. "We've proven ourselves today," he said quietly. "Tomorrow, we do it again, and the time after that. That's what it means to be human." The stars stretched endlessly ahead, silent witnesses to the triumph of ingenuity and courage. The galaxy was vast, filled with danger and opportunity alike. And humanity, small but unyielding, had made its mark. One human, leading his crew with skill, heart, and determination, had shown that even against impossible odds, survival and victory was possible. Zylara, far above, observed the humans with renewed curiosity. She had expected simple creatures, easy to dismiss. Instead, she had witnessed brilliance, courage, and adaptability. The Queen, who had conquered countless worlds, felt the stirrings of something new. Respect, and perhaps even awe, for a species that refused to be ignored. And somewhere deep in the void, humanity's story continued, growing ever stronger, ever bolder. Elias Rourke and his crew had not just survived, they had proven that cleverness, courage, and unity could turn the tide of the galaxy. They were humans, and they were unstoppable. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, silent witnesses to the struggle and triumph of a species that had once been dismissed as weak and insignificant. Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge of his ship, his eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. The human crew worked around him, calm but alert, each aware that this moment would define not just their own lives, but the place of humanity in the galaxy. Across the void, the Zorvian flagship loomed larger than ever, its dark hull shimmering with alien technology and authority. Queen Zylara watched the humans with an intensity that few had ever seen in her. She had followed Elias through impossible trials, through battles where odds were stacked against him 10-1. And yet, he had survived and triumphed every time. His ingenuity, courage, and unyielding determination had changed her perception of humanity. They were no longer a minor species. They were a force to be respected. Zylara's shuttle detached from her flagship and glided toward the human vessel. Elias had expected this. He stood calmly as her figure entered the docking bay, her presence commanding yet measured, every movement deliberate. This time, it was no test, no simulation. This was a meeting of equals, though one of those equals had never been considered capable of challenging a galactic empire. The Queen's eyes rested on Elias. "Captain Rourke," she said, her voice resonant and smooth. "You and your crew have demonstrated abilities beyond anything I imagined. Not in strength, but in courage, ingenuity, and the capacity to inspire loyalty. Your species has earned a place at the table of the galaxy." Elias inclined his head slightly, a gesture of respect and humility. "We do what we must," he replied. "We survive, we adapt, and we help one another. That is what it means to be human." Zylara regarded him for a long moment, then lowered herself to one knee before him. It was a gesture that no human had ever imagined receiving from a being of her power and authority. She did not kneel in submission, but in acknowledgement. She had seen many conquerors, many warriors, many rulers, but none had captured her respect as Elias had. "Your actions have reshaped my understanding," she said quietly. "I have underestimated your species for too long. From this moment, humanity is no longer to be dismissed. You have proven that even the smallest, most underestimated species can change the course of the galaxy." Elias's crew watched in awe. The Queen's gesture was unprecedented, a symbol of recognition that transcended language or culture. It was a moment that would be remembered by humans for generations, a testament to courage, intelligence, and unity overcoming raw power. "We accept your respect," Elias said. "But respect is only the beginning. Humanity seeks understanding, partnership, and progress. We do not conquer for the sake of power, but for the sake of growth and survival for everyone. Zylara straightened, her eyes reflecting both pride and curiosity. I have observed enough to know that your species values loyalty, ingenuity, and courage above all. These qualities are rare in the galaxy. It is time for an alliance, not only to protect your people, but to expand the understanding between our species. Elias nodded. Then we work together. We learn from one another, we share knowledge, and we face the dangers of the universe as allies, not enemies. The Queen's tentacles moved lightly across the console, issuing commands to her flagship. Signals were sent, confirming an unprecedented alliance between her empire and humanity. Across the galaxy, the news would spread slowly at first, but eventually, every species would understand that humans had proven their worth, not through brute force, but through creativity, courage, and the unbreakable bonds they shared with one another. The human crew celebrated quietly, aware that their small ship had become a symbol of hope and possibility. They had faced overwhelming odds, survived impossible challenges, and earned recognition from one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Humanity's place among the stars was no longer in question. They had proven that even a species considered fragile could alter the course of galactic events. Elias looked out through the viewport at the stars stretching endlessly ahead. He thought of all the humans who had come before, the countless acts of ingenuity, bravery, and cooperation that had brought their species to this moment. And he thought of those yet to come, the next generations who would carry humanity further into the cosmos. Zylara's voice broke his thoughts. Captain Rourke, she said, you have achieved what few could even imagine. Not through fear or domination, but through intellect, heart, and courage. I have no doubt that your species will continue to inspire, challenge, and lead. Elias smiled. We hope so. Humanity's journey is just beginning. There are dangers ahead, yes, but also opportunities. We will meet them as we always have together, thinking, adapting, and persevering. For a long moment, the two regarded one another in mutual recognition. It was rare for a being of such immense power to acknowledge the potential of another species, and even rarer for that acknowledgement to be heartfelt and genuine. Yet here, it was one human, standing tall, having earned the respect of a galactic queen, and with it, the promise of a new era for his species. The stars beyond seemed to shine brighter, as if celebrating humanity's triumph. Across the galaxy, countless worlds would come to know of humans' courage, ingenuity, and determination. One species, underestimated and overlooked for too long, had proven that size and strength mattered far less than intellect, adaptability, and heart. As the human ship prepared to leave the docking bay, Zylara spoke once more. Captain, remember this. Your actions have set an example for your species and mine. Do not forget the responsibility that comes with this power, the power to inspire, to change, and to lead. Elias nodded. We will not forget. Humanity stands ready not to dominate, but to grow, to learn, and to face the universe with courage and wisdom. With that, the human ship disengaged, engines glowing softly as it propelled into the endless void. The crew felt the weight of history on their shoulders, but also the exhilaration of achievement. Humanity had survived, had triumphed, and had earned a place among the stars. They were no longer a minor species. They were a force to be respected and admired, a beacon of hope and ingenuity in a galaxy filled with uncertainty. Zylara watched them depart, her eyes lingering on the human vessel as it disappeared into the void. She had expected to find a simple species, easy to dismiss, and instead, she had discovered brilliance, courage, and the remarkable ability to inspire loyalty and respect. The Queen had learned something profound. Sometimes, the smallest spark could ignite a light powerful enough to change the galaxy. And somewhere in the endless stars, humanity's story continued. One human, leading his crew with intelligence, heart, and determination, had shown that survival was more than brute strength. It was creativity, courage, and the unyielding will to rise above impossible odds. The galaxy had witnessed the rise of a species that refused to be ignored, that refused to accept limits imposed by others, and that would continue to grow, inspire, and triumph. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the helm, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Humanity had faced the impossible and prevailed. The future was vast, filled with challenges, wonders, and opportunities. And they were ready. One human had earned the respect of a queen, but the entire species had earned the respect of the galaxy. And with courage, ingenuity, and heart, they would continue to prove that humans were unstoppable. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, silent witnesses to the triumph of a species that refused to be underestimated. Humanity's journey had only just begun, and the universe would never look at them the same way again.